I have dedicated my professional career to the study and control of arthropods.
Okay, so I want to finish up this point I was making at the end of part one. This is again a response to Empty Without Jesus' comments. Sorry, I got to get back to where I was. Apologize for this. Okay. Anyway, about this observation, this is a common claim that creationists like to lob against the evolution camp, that nobody saw it happen, so therefore, how do we know it happened? We're accepting it on faith the same way that you guys accept Genesis on faith. The problem with that is again, we don't, by that definition of evidence, direct personal observation, pretty much almost every murder that occurs in this country would go unsolved. Do you see how that is? A murderer could stand up in court and go, or an alleged murderer, and could say, "Were you there? Were any of you there? Fine, then I'll be going free now." You see, we have independent lines of evidence. The fact of the matter is, and you can argue the interpretation, you can't argue the fact. When we do, without completely blind study, genetic sampling of different life forms, lots of different life forms, and they run them through programs to identify their relationships, they form a tree of life, okay? A particular ordered tree of life. You see how that works? It works the same way that there's a whole science involved in looking at Bibles. Because back in the olden days, before the printing press, monks would sit there and copy Bibles, and then they would, send off a copy, and then those monks would make more copies that would be, as one would wear out, they would make new copies and these kinds of things. And by looking at it, where there's a mistake, back in those days, there was a lot of errors where a pen would slip and there'd be a little scratch mark in one, and then the next one would reproduce that scratch mark as a letter. These kinds of things were added to Bibles. And so by tracing back those little mistakes, scientists can reconstruct the history of these Bible copies through Europe during the Dark Ages and such. And we can actually, there's a whole, I don't recall the name, but it's a whole science dedicated to doing that, right? And then even after the printing press, where there were errors, like a particular typeset was wrong, these kinds of things happened, and so we can still trace it back through those things. So looking at the history of different Bible lineages is a real science. Genetics studies do work the same way, looking at flaws, mistakes, copy errors in genes can do the same thing and construct these phylogenies. Okay, now that aside, you understand that occurs. It's the same exact science that if you're doing a parent test, doing a paternity test, it's exactly the same thing. Doing forensics tests for, again, murder sites. Anyway, the fact is that when you take that tree, and again, it's blind. Nobody's looking at it and going, "Oh, this is a marsupial blood sample or DNA sample, then I'm going to put it here on this tree." Okay, it's not like that. The people doing the analyses, all they have are numerical codes. They don't know what they're looking at. When you compare that tree to the fossil record, the one that people who study fossils have created, they match right on. Okay? Almost exactly right on. You take another tree, you construct using things like protein analyses, right? Match right on, okay? The point is that these independent lines of evidence all say common descent. We don't have to have been there to see it. If you can come up, if a creationist can somehow account for all of that data, outside of, if you want to go into the God tricked us argument, which some people use. I'm not going to, there are people out there that do that whole God planted fossils thing, and I know you don't believe that, or I'm not suggesting you do, and it's a really ridiculous argument. But the point of it is that you have to, we can infer from that. There is, no matter what you believe, no matter what your interpretation, you have to be able to look at that data and explain how that fits into a world without evolution. And unfortunately, to this day, natural selection, evolution through means of natural selection explains that better common descent better than any other explanation to date. And you can argue you want that it's not real or that nobody's ever seen it happen. Anyway, sorry, I'm rambling on about that. I apologize. Let's see. He calls this wordplay, that the word created is what gets people to think creator. He believes in the steady state theory. Sorry, I had a phone call. Let's see here. Anyway, about the believing in steady state, I said I believe in more or less a type of steady state, in that I don't believe that before the Big Bang was nothing. I think there's something. Anyway, but that's what I'm not working in that area. I don't study those things. But the idea that somehow there was nothing and then somehow for no reason nothing created everything kind of thing is a ridiculous straw man that you guys like to throw out as something, when in reality that's what you guys believe. You believe that there's this eternal God that created something out of nothing. Anyway, let's see here. I'm just gonna... Nice. You think those actors and actresses are morally justified in what they do? I have no idea what you mean by that. I don't have the first clue where that... I don't know. Was it a comment to somebody else that you accidentally put in my... I don't know what it means. All right. Sexual biology, his expertise. Where did females come from? Gets very irritated by this. I don't think I was irritated at all by it. I mean, it's certainly a very ignorant statement. What it shows is that anybody who uses it doesn't understand biology. I want to give you... I'll check my time here real quick. Here's an analogy I want you to really think about. I've used this before. Think about this. Don't just brush it off and mock it. Okay, think about it. Okay, you're a Bible-believing Christian. Okay, let's say you and other Bible-believing Christians get together on a forum. Say one of those discussion forums, text discussion forums, where you guys bounce different ideas of theology back and forth. Okay, and I find this forum, and I erupt onto your forum with a comment that says, I think the Bible is false, and I can prove it. I think the Bible's false because the Bible says that Zeus turned into a swan to impregnate Leda, and that's impossible. How could a swan impregnate a woman? That doesn't make any sense, so the Bible is therefore false. All right? Now, do you see how laughable that statement would be? How utterly, incomprehensibly meaningless that is on a discussion on Judeo-Christian theology? Right? So likewise, if I sound irritated at all, it's that statement about where did females come from is exact. It shows it doesn't make any sense. Nobody with an understanding of evolution or biology would ever pose that question. We pose the question of where do males and females come from in terms of gametes, and it's called anisogamy, and we have really, really good evidence. You talk about, I think you challenged again, was I there? Were you there? That's what you said. Where are you there? I'm assuming you mean, were you there? We don't see this happening today. We actually do see it happening today. We see throughout lots and lots of protist single-celled animals, we see all of these phases of isogamy and then anisogamy as an evolutionary adaptation. It seems to happen under pressure. It seems to happen when situations are stressed. And so it's entirely likely that the anisogamy we see in most complex life forms evolved during that time period, during the single-celled phase. Let me check my time. God, I hate this time limit. I wish I could just talk. Wouldn't that be fun for you guys? All right. So I guess I am running out of time here. I'm going to finish this one up and then go on to the next. I'll discuss this evolution of sexes a bit more because it's kind of important.